Well, today's episode is a departure from the Founders Blind Spot series because today, September 15, 2025, marks 10 years that I started on this journey. And it's taken me 10 years to get to this point where I wanted to share a deeply personal story with you from April 25th of 2015. Now, I want to share what I wrote with you that morning from my journal right here. Deciding to risk it all. That's faith. No one, not even myself, is going to put limitations on me. There are no limits to what's possible. No career, no company, no boss, no work responsibilities will keep me from living my purpose. I refuse to make excuses or pander to what others think or give in to others' expectations. There is one life to live, and it should be lived, not simply walked through in some haze, fog, or sleep-like manner. I'm James, and you're listening to the Leadership in 5 podcast, and that was me in April of 2015, about 5 months before I resigned from my role as Chief Culture Officer. I can still feel what it was like to write those words. They weren't written for an audience or for a future post or a podcast. They were for me, but I want to share them with you, and also as a reminder to me that those words were from me, to me, of who I really am. And maybe more importantly, who I refuse to stop being. At the time, Beth and I were at the Hotel Winneshiek in Decorah, Iowa. We were attending a small business conference, and there's a really cool backstory to that day that I'll never forget. Now, the event was organized by two sisters, Kim and Kelly. I had met them a couple of years earlier at a small gathering in a little library in a rural town in North Iowa. Kim had spoken with passion and clarity and conviction, and she was emotional and powerful. And afterward, I went up to her and I said, hey, someday you're going to be speaking on a much bigger stage, and I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to be there cheering you on. Now, fast forward to that April morning in Decorah. The ballroom at the Hotel Winneshiek, it was packed. They were bringing in extra chairs. They were literally running out of space. They had some people that were just showing up that really weren't registered. It was really cool. Kim comes out on stage. She's nervous. She's anxious. I think she was overwhelmed by just the turnout. But as she looked out, she saw Beth and I sitting there. I was to the left of the stage. I had an aisle seat. I was only about 10 rows from the stage. And as she was going around thanking people who had helped her get to this point, she makes eye contact with me, and she smiles and she pointed and she said, Jim, you told me this would happen. You told me you'd be here, and there you are. Thank you. I'll never forget that moment, because sitting there, watching her live out what I had spoken over her years before, I kind of realized I was seeing a glimpse of what might also be possible for me. But the truth was this, I was struggling. I was struggling massively with this calling that was here in my heart to go in an entirely different direction at the time. I was going to have to face the decision to walk away from a role that had become my identity in so many ways, a very prominent role, and one that looked good to so many people from the outside. What they didn't know, that inside I was broken. I was insecure and lacking confidence. I felt trapped. And in that moment that day, I opened this journal, pen in my hand, and I wrote those words as a lifeline. Later on from the stage, one of the speakers said something really profound that felt aimed directly at me. And he said, someone else's description of you does not become your life. And it was like God pressed pause on everything around me, handed me a mirror for me to look at my own reflection. I saw my own words on the page, and then those words from the stage. And together they cut through everything that I felt like I was wrestling with. Now, looking back, what I see is this. Faith, it isn't about certainty. Faith is about the decision to move forward when you don't have all the pieces in place. It's about stepping forward when you can't see the whole map. And there's another line in that journal, and I read it, that still cuts deep to this day. I wrote, no one, not even myself, is going to put limitations on me. If you're listening to this podcast, here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the heaviest limits don't come from other people. They come from us. They come from within. The stories we tell ourselves about what's possible, the ceilings that we install over our own lives, the excuses that we disguise as obligations. When you're leading a business, those self-imposed limits don't just shape you, they shape everyone around you. They ripple into your team, into your culture, into your decisions, your future. So let me ask you this. What limitations are you quietly accepting right now? Which ones come from other people's expectations? And which ones did you write for yourself? Because here's the truth. The limits that you accept today are the ceilings your team will hit tomorrow. And if you tolerate small living in yourself, you're teaching others to play small too. And when you look back 10 years from now, when your story is told, what's it going to say? Will it be about the vision that you chased and the risks that you took, the purpose that you refused to compromise on, or will it be about the opportunities that you let slip because you let limitations have the last word? Don't miss this. You've got one story. You've got one life. Don't settle for less than the life that you were designed for. And that's what we're thinking about today.